What if I told you that Santa Claus on film has evolved from a simple magical gift giver into one of cinema's most complex occult figures, a being whose origins connect to ancient pagan gods, shamanic practices, and supernatural forces that predate Christianity by thousands of years? I'm about to take you deeper into the shadows than most film channels dare to go. While other channels give you nostalgic Christmas content and holiday cheer, occult cinema reveals the genuine esoteric knowledge hidden in the stories we tell ourselves. Just like Santa himself transforms from benevolent saint to ancient demon depending on which tradition you follow, you're about to discover how cinema has gradually revealed the darker, more mystical origins of this figure who visits every home on Earth in a single night. These are 10 films spanning 10 decades that show the evolution of Santa from Victorian magic trick to ancient occult entity, and by the end, you'll understand why this jolly figure in red might be far older and stranger than the Coca-Cola advertisements would have you believe. Film number 1, Santa Claus, 1898. Cinema as a Magic Lantern. The very first film to depict Santa Claus was created by British filmmaker George Albert Smith in 1898, just 3 years after the invention of cinema itself. This 1-minute short shows Santa magically appearing in a home, filling stockings, and vanishing up the chimney. To understand the occult significance of this film, you have to remember that cinema itself was considered almost supernatural in the 1890s. Audiences had never seen moving images before, and the technology was often called a magic lantern, a term borrowed from occult practices involving projected light and illusion. Smith's film presents Santa as a genuinely supernatural being who can materialize and dematerialize at will. There's no explanation for his powers, no sleigh visible outside. He simply appears through what looks like double exposure photography, which audiences at the time would have perceived as actual magic. The film establishes something crucial that would influence every Santa movie that followed. This figure operates outside normal physical laws. He's not just a man in a costume, but a being with access to powers that transcend material reality. Early cinema pioneers like Smith understood that film could create experiences that felt magical even to sophisticated viewers. By choosing Santa as one of the first subjects for this new technology, Smith was connecting the wonder of cinema itself to the wonder of Christmas magic. The simplicity of the film is deceptive. In less than a minute, it establishes Santa as a spirit-like entity who can cross the boundary between the physical world and wherever he comes from, appearing and disappearing according to laws that humans don't understand. Film number 2, Santa Claus, 1925. The North Pole as a mystical realm. The 1925 silent film Santa Claus expanded on the basic concept by showing Santa's workshop at the North Pole for what may have been the first time in cinema, establishing this remote location as a magical realm where normal rules don't apply. The North Pole setting is significant from an occult perspective because it represents what mystics call a liminal space, a location at the edge of the known world where the boundaries between dimensions become permeable. In shamanic traditions, the far north has always been associated with spirit realms and magical powers. This film introduced audiences to the concept of Santa's helpers, the elves who manufacture toys through what appears to be magical rather than mechanical means. The workshop operates according to dream logic rather than industrial processes, suggesting that these toys are created through supernatural rather than physical labor. The silent film format meant that all the magic had to be conveyed visually, which actually enhanced the mystical quality. Without dialogue to explain or rationalize what was happening, Santa's world appeared genuinely otherworldly and strange. The film presents the North Pole as completely isolated from human civilization, accessible only to Santa and his helpers. This isolation mirrors how mystery schools and magical orders throughout history have operated in remote locations away from mainstream society. By establishing Santa's home as a place where magic is normal and physical laws are flexible, the film created a template that would influence Christmas movies for the next century. The idea that there exists a magical realm parallel to our own, where Santa and his helpers work according to principles that transcend ordinary reality. Film number 3, Babes in Toyland, 1934. Toyland as a fairy realm. The 1934 Laurel and Hardy film Babes in Toyland brought Santa into the realm of fairy tale fantasy, presenting him as the benevolent ruler of a magical kingdom where toys come to life and nursery rhyme characters are real. Toyland in this film functions as what folklore scholars call a fairy realm, a dimension that exists parallel to our world but operates according to magical rather than physical principles. Santa's role as the master of this realm connects him to ancient traditions of fairy kings and supernatural rulers. The film's depiction of toys coming to life through Santa's magic draws from much older traditions about animated objects and golems. The idea that consciousness can be transferred into inanimate matter through magical means, What makes this significant is that it established Santa not just as a gift giver, but as a ruler of an entire magical kingdom with its own inhabitants, laws, and conflicts. This expanded his role from individual magical being to cosmic authority figure. The way the film blends different fairy tale characters with Santa suggests that he exists in the same reality as other magical beings, witches, giants, and enchanted creatures. This places him within a broader supernatural cosmology, rather than as an isolated Christmas figure. The toy soldiers that come to life to defend Toyland represent the idea that Santa's creations carry his magical essence and can act as his agents in the physical world, a concept that connects to traditions about magical servitors and animated guardians. Film number 4, Miracle on 34th Street, 1947, Santa as Tulpa. The 1947 classic Miracle on 34th Street introduced a revolutionary concept to Santa cinema: the idea that belief itself might create reality, and that Santa could exist as what occultists call a tulpa or thought form brought into being through collective faith. The film's central question, is Kris Kringle actually Santa Claus, or just a kind old man who believes he is, opens up profound questions about the nature of reality and the power of consciousness to create what it believes in. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, tulpas are entities created through intense mental focus and belief. When enough consciousness is directed toward a particular form, that form can develop independent existence and even physical manifestation. The film suggests that Santa might exist precisely because millions of children believe in him, their collective faith creating an actual being who fulfills the role they've imagined. This is remarkably sophisticated occult philosophy for a mainstream 1940s film. The courtroom scene where Santa's existence is legally validated represents the moment when collective belief becomes socially recognized reality, when the tulpa is acknowledged not just by individuals, but by institutional authority. What makes this film occultly significant is that it doesn't definitively answer whether Kris is really Santa. It leaves open the possibility that belief and reality might be the same thing, that consciousness creates what it focuses on with sufficient intensity. The post-war timing of the film is important. Audiences emerging from World War II needed to believe in benevolent magic and the power of faith to create good in the world. The film provided that belief while simultaneously exploring genuine occult principles about how consciousness shapes reality. Film number 5, Santa Claus, 1959. The Cosmic Battle. The 1959 Mexican film Santa Claus is the first to present Santa in explicitly occult terms, showing him engaged in literal spiritual warfare against the devil while using magical surveillance and assistance from Merlin the Wizard. This film is wild. Santa lives in a castle in space above the North Pole, uses magical devices to spy on children around the world, and receives strategic advice from Merlin, yes, the Arthurian wizard, who apparently works as Santa's occult consultant. The devil, called Pitch in the film, is sent from hell specifically to corrupt children and ruin Christmas. This isn't metaphorical. The movie shows actual scenes in hell with demons and flames, establishing that Santa exists in a universe where Christian cosmology is literally real. Santa's surveillance technology includes a telescope that can see through walls and a device with giant lips that allows him to hear children's thoughts. From an occult perspective, these represent scrying and clairvoyance, magical abilities that allow perception beyond normal sensory limitations. The film's depiction of Santa using magic powder to make himself invisible, a flower that puts people to sleep, and a key that opens any lock shows him as a practitioner of folk magic and shamanic techniques rather than just a gift giver. What makes this film groundbreaking is that it explicitly places Santa within a cosmic battle between good and evil, heaven and hell. He's not just a secular symbol of generosity, but an actual agent of divine forces fighting against literal demons. The involvement of Merlin connects Santa to pre-Christian magical traditions, suggesting that his power comes from ancient sources that predate Christianity. This hints at the historical reality that Santa's origins lie in pagan winter solstice celebrations and shamanic practices. Film number 6, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, 1964. Santa as a universal force. The 1964 film Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, despite being campy and low budget, introduced a concept that would influence later Santa films. The idea that Santa's influence extends beyond Earth and represents a universal principle rather than just a human tradition. The plot involves Martians kidnapping Santa because their children have become obsessed with Earth's Christmas broadcasts and have lost their Martian joy and creativity. This suggests that Santa represents something fundamental to childhood consciousness across all species and planets. From an occult perspective, this positions Santa as what Jung would call an archetype, a universal pattern of consciousness that manifests across different cultures and even different worlds. The Martians recognize that their children need what Santa provides, suggesting it's not just cultural tradition, but a necessary element of psychological development. The film's depiction of Santa's workshop being recreated on Mars shows that his magic isn't tied to specific locations or Earth-based traditions. It's a transferable system that can function anywhere consciousness exists. While the movie is primarily comedy, it touches on genuine occult concepts about how certain spiritual principles are universal rather than culturally specific. Santa becomes a cosmic force representing generosity, creativity, and the preservation of childhood wonder. The Martians' initial lack of these qualities and their children suffering because of it suggests that Santa represents something essential to healthy consciousness development, what psychologists might call the capacity for play and imagination, but what occultists would recognize as connection to creative spiritual forces. Film number 7, Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1984. The Shadow Santa. Silent Night, Deadly Night shocked audiences in 1984 by presenting Santa as a figure of trauma and terror, showing how childhood experiences can corrupt even the most benevolent symbols into sources of psychological horror. The film follows Billy Chapman, who witnesses his parents murdered by a criminal in a Santa suit on Christmas Eve. This trauma creates what psychologists call a negative association, but what occultists would recognize as a corrupted thought form, the Santa archetype twisted into something dark and violent. Years later, after suffering abuse at a Catholic orphanage where punishment was associated with Christmas, Billy has a psychotic break while working as a department store Santa. He becomes the thing that traumatized him, killing those he judges as naughty, in a twisted interpretation of Santa's moral authority. From an occult perspective, Billy has created what Tibetan Buddhism calls a wrathful tulpa, a thought form born from intense negative emotion that takes on independent existence and drives destructive behavior. His Santa isn't the collective positive belief of millions of children, but a personal demon created through trauma. The film sparked massive controversy, with parent groups protesting that it corrupted the Santa image and traumatized children. Theater owners pulled it from screens, and it became one of the most banned films of the 1980s. But the controversy revealed something important. People understood instinctively that Santa holds genuine psychological and spiritual power, and that corrupting this symbol could have real effects on consciousness, particularly in children. The movie demonstrates how archetypes can be inverted. The protector becomes the predator, the gift giver becomes the punisher. This reflects occult teachings about how spiritual symbols can be used for both beneficial and harmful purposes depending on the consciousness that channels them. Film number 8, The Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993. Holiday spirits as actual entities. Tim Burton's The Nightmare. Before Christmas presented a revolutionary concept, that holiday figures like Santa Claus and Jack Skellington aren't just symbols, but actual entities who exist in their own dimensional realms and embody the spiritual essence of their respective celebrations. The film shows Christmas Town and Halloween Town as real places populated by beings whose entire existence revolves around manifesting their holiday's energy in the human world. Santa, called Sandy Claus by the Halloween residents, is portrayed as an actual entity with genuine magical powers. Jack Skellington's attempt to take over Christmas demonstrates what happens when one type of spiritual energy tries to channel another. The results are distorted and potentially dangerous. His well-meaning but misguided effort creates presence that terrify rather than delight, showing that holiday magic requires the right consciousness to manifest properly. From an occult perspective, the film presents each holiday as having its own egregore, a group thought form created and sustained by collective human belief and celebration. These egregores exist in their own dimensions and work to manifest their particular energy in the physical world. Santa's kidnapping and rescue shows that these holiday spirits are vulnerable to interference from other spiritual forces, suggesting an entire cosmology of competing or cooperating entities that influence human consciousness through cultural celebrations. The way Jack learns that he cannot simply replace Santa demonstrates the occult principle that different spiritual forces require different vessels and cannot be arbitrarily substituted. Each archetype has its own nature and function. Burton's film influenced how later movies would portray Santa, not as a single individual, but as a role or office that embodies specific spiritual principles, suggesting that Santa Claus might be a position held by different beings across time. Film number 9, Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, 2010, The Ancient Pagan Entity. The 2010 Finnish film Rare Exports completely reimagined Santa by revealing him as an ancient pre-Christian entity, a dangerous pagan creature that was buried in ice and is accidentally awakened by modern excavation. The film draws from authentic Finnish and Scandinavian folklore about the Yule goat and other winter spirits that were far more threatening than the jolly modern Santa. These original figures punished misbehaving children, demanded offerings, and inspired genuine fear rather than cheerful anticipation. Rare exports shows the real Santa as a horned, demonic creature surrounded by naked old men who serve as his helpers, a disturbing inversion of the cheerful elves from earlier films. These helpers kidnap naughty children, connecting to historical traditions about winter spirits who would steal away those who misbehaved. The archaeological dig that awakens Santa connects to occult concepts about ancient entities that can be imprisoned but not destroyed, waiting in suspended animation until the conditions are right for their return. From a folklore perspective, the film is remarkably accurate to pre-Christian winter traditions. The Yule celebrations in Northern Europe involved appeasing dangerous spirits and protecting homes from supernatural threats during the darkest time of year. The way the Finnish villagers must capture and contain this ancient Santa shows that the modern, friendly version is a recent invention that covers up something far older and more dangerous. The film suggests that sanitizing these ancient figures doesn't eliminate them, it just hides their true nature. The movie's climax, where the captured Santa is prepared for export as a commercial product, satirizes how capitalism has transformed ancient spiritual entities into consumer commodities, but hints that the original power and danger still exists beneath the commercial packaging. Film number 10, Violent Night, 2022. The Immortal Warrior Santa. Violent Night brings Santa's evolution full circle by revealing him as an immortal being with a violent past, connecting him directly to Norse mythology and the figure of Odin, the wandering god associated with Yule celebrations. The film's Santa, played by David Harbour, is shown to have lived for over 1,000 years, originally as a Viking warrior before transforming into the gift-giving figure we know today. This connects to actual historical research suggesting that Santa Claus absorbed characteristics from Odin's wild hunt. In Norse tradition, Odin would ride through the winter sky during Yule leading a host of spirits, and children would leave offerings for his 8-legged horse Sleipnir. The similarities to Santa's reindeer-drawn sleigh and the tradition of leaving cookies are striking. The film shows Santa as having grown weary and cynical after centuries of watching humanity's goodness decline, but rediscovering his purpose through protecting an innocent family from violent criminals. This redemption arc suggests that even immortal beings must continually choose their nature rather than being fixed in predetermined roles. Santa's combat skills and magical abilities in the film, including his ability to know who's naughty or nice and to appear in multiple locations, are presented as genuine powers developed over centuries rather than just Christmas magic. The movie's violence serves a thematic purpose beyond action entertainment. It shows that the figure we've sanitized into a jolly gift giver might have originated as something far more primal and dangerous, a warrior god who has chosen to channel his power toward protection and generosity. By connecting Santa to Norse mythology and Viking culture, Violent Night acknowledges what folklorists have long known, that Christian saints and pagan gods often merged in popular tradition, creating hybrid figures that carry elements from multiple spiritual sources. Now you understand how Santa Claus on film has evolved from a simple magical trick in early cinema to a complex figure whose origins reach back to ancient pagan gods, shamanic practices, and spiritual entities that predate modern Christmas by thousands of years. These 10 films, spanning over a century, show how each generation has reimagined Santa according to their understanding of magic, spirituality, and the supernatural. The progression reveals a gradual uncovering of older, darker origins that the commercial Christmas industry has worked hard to obscure. From the Victorian magic lantern shows, to space-age cosmic battles, to ancient demons buried in ice, to immortal Norse warriors, cinema has slowly peeled back the layers of Santa's mythology to reveal the genuinely occult foundations beneath the red suit and white beard. What's remarkable is how these films have preserved and transmitted knowledge about pre-Christian winter traditions, shamanic practices, and pagan celebrations that might otherwise have been completely forgotten. By embedding these elements in entertainment, filmmakers have kept alive the memory of what winter solstice celebrations meant before they were Christianized and commercialized. The question isn't whether Santa Claus is real, the question is which Santa we're talking about. The commercial mascot created by Coca-Cola, the Christian saint who gave gifts to the poor, the pagan god who rode through winter skies leading the wild hunt, the ancient demon who punished misbehaving children. Cinema suggests that all of these figures exist simultaneously, layered on top of each other like archaeological strata. What other holiday figures do you think have hidden occult origins that cinema has gradually revealed? Have you noticed how Santa's portrayal has changed across different films and decades? And if this video opened your mind to the deeper origins of familiar cultural figures and how cinema preserves occult knowledge across generations, then you need to subscribe to Occult Cinema right now. I'm constantly discovering how the stories we tell ourselves for entertainment contain genuine wisdom about spiritual traditions that predate modern religion. Hit that notification bell because the ancient gods and spirits never disappeared. They just learned to wear different costumes and appear in different forms. And the most incredible part? The spiritual knowledge you need to understand the true nature of these figures might be hiding in the very movies you watch every Christmas season.